And basically, matters concerning widows are issues that people are very scared of. Nobody wants to speak about them, but I'm glad we have the platform here today and every other Wednesday to do this. And yes, so we are about to hear a story of one of us who is a widow for the last 2 years, has been actually enjoying her life amidst all of it. And yeah, it's a privilege to have her on the show today.
All right.
Yeah.
And her name is none other than Gladys Some Mwangi. She is the manager of corporate affairs at Kenya Reinsurance Company. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And it's very, very nice that you come out so boldly to talk about this and help others out there who probably could not even know how to talk about it in the first place. You've worn that shoe, you know how it fits, you know where it pinches most. First of all, karibu sana. A word of hello to the viewer and probably tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay. Thank you. Hello, viewer. And just as you've been introduced by Safin and Diana, my name is Gladys Some Mwangi, Manager Corporate Affairs at Kenya Reinsurance Corporation. I have been a widow for the past 2 years, exactly 2 years and 3 months now, since my husband passed on in a tragic road accident in the year 2015 on 26th of November at about 8:30 in the evening. And since then, life had to move on, and it's been a very tough journey. But again, you've got to accept. You've got to say, yes, it has happened. So then how do I move on? Right.
Okay. And I know it wasn't easy to get to that point of accepting.
Not at all. It was something I could not imagine that I could ever move on. I even thought that my life was also coming to an end at that particular time. And for me, at that particular time, I was really caught off guard because I had never imagined that my husband could die. If there was anybody I actually thought would die in that marriage, it was me, because I was probably sickly once in a while.
Okay.
And one thing I knew is that my husband was a very strong man, and he was a very nice husband. And every time the thought of death crossed my mind, I knew that when I eventually die, I knew my husband would take care of our children so well, because he jealously guarded and loved them so, so very much. So for him to have died just tragically like that, I mean, after we had talked, like that evening, we had just talked at about around 8, and in about and he was telling me he was actually on Thika Road coming home, and so he was just informing me that he's on the way. He should be home in another 20 minutes. And so I had even started warming food for him, because that was actually what I would do every time he would call me and tell me, I'm on my way coming home. Can I speak to Neema and Johnny, my children? Yes, and Neema and Johnny always wanted to speak to Daddy when he's on his way coming home. So this particular evening, he calls and he says, in the next 20 minutes, I should be home. So I tell him, okay, fine, we're waiting. So I go warming the food, and while I'm warming the food, somebody calls my nephew. There was my nephew, Ken, was at home. And so somebody calls Ken, and I see Ken picking the call, and he is so disturbed. He says, where? Don't get him out of that place until I come. So I ask him, what is happening? And Ken tells me, there's an accident. Where? On Thika Road. So immediately, I think there was a feeling in me, and I think I knew there's something terribly wrong. I actually knelt down in the middle of the living room, and I actually lifted my hands up and said, God, please do not make me a widow. I am still too young to be a widow. I do not know why that crossed my mind immediately.
You felt
I felt it in my heart.
Did you get to go and see him at that point, or?
It was immediately that I actually rushed to a neighbor and told the neighbor I need to run to, because I couldn't drive, obviously. So I asked my neighbors, the Wambogos, to quickly rush me to Thika Road. And so on our way, I can tell you it's a very agonizing period where you are not sure whether you're going to see your husband alive, whether he is so injured. You know, I'm even asking, have they rushed him to hospital? And I'm asking my nephew, why did you even tell them not to take him out of that place? Yet you know very well that he should have been taken to hospital. And so as soon as we got there, I saw my nephew was there, and my other niece also, Sally, was there. And Sally said, oh, the car is actually written off. And that is when I said, that is not my husband. I am not getting out of this car. I am not looking at that car. And to tell you to date, I never went to view that car. I only saw it in the social media where it was doing the rounds and people talking about him, because my husband was a media person and he had been in the limelight previously. So people talked about it in the media. But I never got to see my husband until 1 week later. That was on a Thursday. So the funeral service was on a Thursday at the ICC church. And at that time, the pastors had taken me through counseling and told me it would be important to actually view the body and have closure. And I can assure you that I actually even refused to go to the mortuary when they were bringing the body to the church. So it was at the church that actually the pastor told me, Gladys, you would have to lead the children and go and receive the body into the church service. So at that moment is when I realized, true, my husband
really
had passed
gone.
on.
So it actually took time between the moment you got to the accident scene to the point where you got back home. You still had that, did you still have that thought of probably he's not the one, he's still coming home?
Exactly. You are so right.
Yeah.
And you know, as I went there, actually, even at the mortuary, when they had even, you know, I saw people go and they viewed the body. And I remember asking my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, who was also there with me, and I asked her, are you sure? Did you actually see that it was my husband? Is that Mwangi, really? Did you see that it's Baba? We called him Baba Neema. Is that really Baba Neema? And my sister-in-law said, yes, it is Baba Neema. I told them, no, that is not my husband. I spoke with my husband. In fact, for me, it was still 20 minutes ago. I spoke with my husband 20 minutes ago, and we talked so well. So if you people have different ideas, that is not my husband. And it really took a lot of convincing me and a lot of looking at the body. And for me, what tore me apart especially was because this man had a very special relationship with his children. In fact, at some point, I used to ask myself, do these children know that I am actually their mother? That I actually gave birth to them?
Closer to him
Exactly.
compared to yourself.
Exactly. So I remember my brother, Dr. Some, kept telling me that every time he had me scream, even at the mortuary, I would be telling people, what am I going to tell my children? What will I tell my children? Because these are children that were so tied to their father. These were children who he would actually, every evening, he would come and carry. My daughter was even 9 years old at that time and almost a mature girl who should be going to bed alone. But my husband used to carry her to bed, put her to bed. My son was always on daddy's laps throughout. So it was something that really put me into turmoil.
And you're sharing with us that it took you time for the information and the news to sink.
To sink, yes.
At what point and what triggered it now? What happened until as all that was happening, it came to a point where you realized that now it's real.
Yes.
Now it has happened. Now I have to accept the truth.
Yes.
What happened that led to that moment?
I think, you know, the fact that I could see people come home. I saw people crying. I saw my son. Actually, one time that actually the realization came when there was a portrait of my husband that was put on a stool as people came and signed the condolence book. And my son went, he was 3 years old. Was it 3 years even? He was 3 years old, and he went there and knelt down next to the portrait of the father. And he looked at it and pulled it and kissed it. I don't know what went, and that is the time now I knew
that it has happened.
My husband is no more. And
how
apart
did you
from
feel?
that, oh, it was so tearing. It was so heart-rending. And apart from that, there is a friend of mine. Actually, she was actually the principal of my children. She's called Masi Igoki. Masi Igoki took it upon herself to actually take me through this realization that Mwangi is no longer there. Gladys, you need to realize that Mwangi is no longer there. And we will not wish him away, yes, but we've got to deal with it.
Yeah.
We've got to really understand that now life must move on. Mwangi is no more. But these are his children. Neema and John need you. So would you rather tear yourself apart, or would you rather pick yourself up and be there for these children?
Yeah. Okay.
And that's exactly what now I started doing. And apart from that, for that to really sink, it took time. Even after the funeral, it still did not register to me. Every time I would think maybe he was going to come through that door. I was used to him coming at a particular time and how he would come.
And you're sharing this,
you know.
and it fits with the, more or less, I know it's not the same situation. Every experience is different, but last week, Diana shared with us a bit about her story. And for you as well, it took a bit of time to get to that point of acceptance, and you start picking the pieces of your life to move on. Right?
Yeah, actually, listening to Gladys, it's actually taking me back, and I'm thinking, you know, when you're a widow, the point you're a widow, having experienced it, I can tell people tend to walk away from you, and when you're at the season of trying to accept, actually the first 1 week out, I don't know whether it was the same for you, but was it easy for you to actually, in the setup of having people around you, children asking questions, was it easy for you at some point to actually, did people walk with you in the process, or they actually walked away? Because at my position, they actually did walk away.
I really identify with that, Diana. And, you know, it was at that particular time, you know, when people are mourning, before the funeral, everybody will come and everybody will tell you, we'll be there for you, we'll be there with you. But immediately after the funeral, I'm telling you, the only people that remained there was my mother, and now this Mercy Goki, who kept coming all the time. And I really, really appreciate her so very much, because she stood by me. And also the church. My church, the pastors were there. There was a Pastor Leo who actually, and Pastor William, who on a daily basis would be there to talk to me. And like Diana says, people walk away from you. And I think like those who are married, for instance, your friends that were like couples, at that particular time, you know, they really avoid you because you are now a threat. Because now you don't have a husband. You don't have a husband.
There's this thing they think that my husband is at risk around her.
Yes.
So the best is to keep off. Yes.
You're right, Diana, actually.
Did you experience this?
Yes, I did. Actually, I lost most of our married friends that we knew back then. We were all young, so most of our married couples were very young. But up to date, I actually do not hang around married couples, because what I felt then and what I went through back then, they say things, they walk away from you, and actually even for you as a widow, it's quite uncomfortable. I don't know whether it was for you, Gladys.
Very uncomfortable. In fact, you actually feel almost like an outcast. It's a stigma of some sort, by the way.
Yes,
it's a stigma. It is. Because then everybody looks at you as a widow, somebody who is very needy. You know, again, one very, very interesting experience is that now even the men start thinking that you're looking for a rescuer.
Exactly.
You know? They start thinking that they are now going to rescue you because you are a widow. And I remember one person, a friend, who actually sent me a Facebook inbox and said, Gladys, don't worry, I'm going to be there. I'll replace Mwangi. And to be honest with you, I was very disgusted. And to date, I do not even like that person. Because I think it was very ignorant and very, very insensitive of them to tell me that they were going to... Nobody even can replace Mwangi even today, because he was totally a different person. And even if I should ever get married again, that would be a very different person from Mwangi. They will never be the same.
That reminds me, and we've had this conversation before, Diana, about, you know, the kind of things you need to tell a widow or a widower and what not to say. Because at times we get confused. You attend a funeral and you do not know exactly what to say. At times, due to ignorance or lack of knowledge, people end up saying all the wrong things.
You actually mentioned, just taken me back. That very same morning, after my husband passed on the previous night, and that morning, some friends came. And would you believe, actually, I still remember one of my colleagues in the office reminds me about a friend of mine who came in the morning, and she looked at me and laughed and said, Gladys, now we are in the same boat. You and I now can be friends. Because she is separated from her husband, and now she now thought, because now my husband is no more there, then now we can be friends. Was that something to really tell me?
Friendship
If
is
anything,
good,
believe
but the
you me,
context-
it actually
not
killed
at the time.
that
Yeah.
friendship.
Yeah.
To date, I do not want to associate with that friend.
Yeah. A lot. Yeah, and I don't know whether you did. For me, I took off pictures from the wall because my kids used to pay so much attention to the pictures and just sit and stare. And then at the next moment, you notice they are very low. So what I did, I pulled off the photos on the wall, which is something, I don't know whether you did, Gladys.
I think I shared with you. What happened is this. One evening, like twice, when I went to work and I came back and I would look at our wedding portrait on the wall. And I think you must have seen that portrait when you came. And every time I came, the first time I came, I looked at the portrait and like, my husband is no more.
It reminds you.
My daughter looked at me the first day. The second day when I came, again, the pain comes back so much. So that particular day, my daughter looked at me and said, Mom, no, I'm not going to allow this to happen. You know, this is a 9-year-old. She said, Mommy, I'm not going to allow this to happen. One day you're going to collapse, Mommy. I will not allow it. And she took a stool, picked all the portraits, including the ones that were even for themselves, the children. She removed all of them, and up to date, we have never put any portrait on the walls. Yes. It actually helps to heal.
So, okay, so what happens on, I'm sure there have to be some reminders, like on birthdays, on the anniversaries of your wedding, places you used to go, you bump into his friends. Like, what goes into your mind? How do you deal with those moments? Like on his birthday, on your birthday, your children, their birthdays. I'm sure there used to be those family moments you used to have together.
Yes.
How do you deal with those
Definitely,
days?
it will happen. It will happen, it will come, you will feel sad about it. But like I said again, try to look at the most positive things that happened during those days and celebrate them and try and, you know, reminisce the beautiful moments. And just keep thinking this person is happy that you're celebrating. Don't keep thinking it must be really sad, it must be really bad. Talk to yourself out of pity-patting and out of mourning throughout, and look at the positive things about those events. And also now, like you say, the places that you used to frequent together. The first times, you dread going to those places. You imagine it will remind you. But no, guess what? It is actually very positive to visit those places. When you go to those places, actually somehow you start getting over it and you think, okay, it is just
not that bad.
Yes, it's not that bad anyway. Yes, you can
Face your fears.
face it. Yes, whatever you fear most, conquer it.
Conquer it.
And once you conquer it, you will actually move on, and you will rise above that pain. It will no longer be painful. It will only be memories. And so I would actually encourage fellow widows and widowers that you should make the memory of that loved one a very sweet memory, not a painful memory. Forget about, I mean, we had arguments, obviously. I mean, the marriage always has its ups and downs. And obviously, ours was not devoid of such. So don't keep dwelling on the negative things that happened. It was part of the juicing and part of spicing up the marriage. Think about the sweet moments you had together. Think about what else you would like to have in life. And if you even think about moving on, probably getting another husband or another wife in future, think about how best to borrow what was so good about in that marriage that you will carry on into the next marriage to make it beautiful.
Thank you. And in future, probably one of these days, we should talk about moving on, and dating, and getting married, and those pictures on the wall. Some insist that don't touch that photo there, yet you have a new partner in your life. I don't know. We'll talk about that in the coming days. But then we've run out of time for this particular conversation. I don't know if you have anything, Diana.
Yes, I'll probably like to talk to someone who's going through grief right now, and tell them it's possible to actually heal and work. If you look at us, it seemed impossible the first few days, the first 1 week, the first few months, but you can actually walk the journey, take a step at a time, and be hung around people you know, like Gladys said, that have walked the journey before you and are actually going through grief at the moment. And by the time, before you know it, you'll be able to walk through it, walk your children through it, and move on, you know, accept yourself back into the society. And before you know it, you are actually living life better than you thought you would have.
Wow. Thank you so much, ladies, for your time. And it's been really nice doing this with you, Diana. It's been awesome. Thank you so much. And you need such a support group for you to walk in this journey. And in case you're watching and you'd like to be part of the program, probably you're a widow or a widower out there and you'd like your story to be shared, or you'd like just to encourage someone, just follow us on social media and you can be able to tell us how exactly you want us to, you know, feature you in this particular program. My name is Safin Achieng. I'm coming right up with the next interview that I'm so excited about. We told you about this in the morning. Our lifestyle segment today is actually all about how you can have the perfect hourglass if you're a lady. And we know that a lot of young ladies out there are dealing with what we call belly fat, and they want their waist to look so nice and so organized. We'll be telling you exactly how that can work as we talk about waist training, and even helping you know how to choose the right kind of corset for yourself, for beauty, for waist training, whatever you like. So join me for that conversation. It's coming right up after this particular break. But for these widows and widowers, we talk about these kind of conversations every Wednesday. So stay tuned for that next week. It will be another inspiring conversation. Don't miss. We take a short break.